32 blind dates. 32 men who bolted the second billionaire tech mogul Clara Sterling claimed she was drowning in credit card debt. She was convinced true love was a myth bought by the highest bidder. Then came a struggling single dad who offered his last $20 to save her. Clara Sterling was worth exactly $3.4 billion, a fact publicly documented by Forbes in their annual list of America's self-made women. At 32, she was the undisputed visionary behind Sterling Web Logistics, a tech-driven supply chain empire that moved millions of packages across the globe every day. She owned a sprawling penthouse overlooking Chicago's Gold Coast, flew exclusively in a Gulfstream G650, and had a personal chef who knew exactly how she liked her truffles shaved. But on a rainy Tuesday evening in November, Clara looked like a woman who didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. She sat in a booth at a mid-tier, overly lit chain restaurant in the suburbs, wearing a pilled mustard-yellow sweater she had bought for $4 at a thrift store. Her designer haircut was pinned back into a messy, uneven bun. Her nails were bare and chipped. In her lap rested a battered faux leather purse containing a cracked iPhone 8 and a wallet filled with maxed-out declined credit cards. Across from her sat blind date number 32, Cameron Davis, a junior vice president at a downtown investment firm. For the first 20 minutes, Cameron had been incredibly charming. He had flashed his Rolex, name-dropped his Ivy League alma mater, and subtly bragged about his stock portfolio. He clearly thought he was slumming it with a humble, pretty graphic designer named Claire, which was the alias Clara used on her burner Hinge profile. "So, Claire," Cameron said, swirling his craft, IPA. "You mentioned you've been doing some freelance design work. That must be quaint, though I imagine the income is a bit unpredictable." Clara looked down, practicing the nervous, shameful gaze she had perfected over the last 6 months. "It is," she whispered, forcing a slight tremor into her voice. "Actually, I should be honest with you, Cameron. I really value transparency." Cameron leaned in, his smile encouraging. "Of course. You can tell me anything." "I'm in a lot of trouble financially," Clara said, letting out a heavy, rehearsed sigh. "My mother got sick last year, and between her medical bills and my own crushing student loans, I'm about $85,000 in debt. I actually had to pawn my grandmother's wedding ring just to make my half of the rent this month. I'm facing eviction." The change in Cameron was instantaneous, as if Clara had just announced she was carrying a highly contagious plague. The warm, encouraging smile evaporated. His posture stiffened, and he physically pulled back against the vinyl booth. His eyes darted to the exits. "Wow," Cameron said, his voice dropping an octave, completely stripped of its previous warmth. Wow. That's a lot of baggage." "I know it's a lot to lay on you on a first date," Clara said, maintaining her earnest, desperate persona. "But I'm just looking for someone who understands. Someone who can stand by me while I figure this out." Cameron coughed into his fist, suddenly looking at his Apple Watch. "Right. Well, listen, Claire. I completely respect your honesty. But I literally just remembered I have an early morning conference call with our Tokyo office. I really need to get going." He didn't offer to pay for her iced water or his beer. He threw a $20 bill on the table, mumbled an awkward goodbye, and practically sprinted out of the restaurant into the Chicago drizzle. Clara watched him go through the rain-streaked window. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She just felt a profound, heavy exhaustion settle into her bones. She reached into her battered purse, pulled out a crisp, real $100 bill from a hidden compartment, tucked it under her glass for the severely overworked waitress, and stood up. 10 minutes later, Clara slipped into the cavernous, heated back seat of a black Maybach, waiting in a nearby alley. Her executive assistant, Bridget, handed her a steaming cup of artisan matcha and a heated towel. "I take it Cameron from Goldman Sachs was a bust?" Bridget asked, typing away on an iPad. Clara wiped the cheap smudged mascara from her eyes. "He broke the land speed record running for his Audi. That makes 32, Bridget. 32 men who claim they want an independent, authentic woman, but run for the hills the second they think I might be a financial liability. You are testing them with $85,000 of medical debt and impending homelessness, Clara," Bridget pointed out gently. "That is a severe stress test for a Tuesday night drink state. If they run when I'm poor, they only want me when I'm rich," Clara said bitterly, leaning her head against the leather headrest. "My ex-fiancé taught me that lesson the hard way. He smiled in my face for 2 years while secretly funneling my company's seed money into his private accounts. I refuse to be a human ATM ever again. If a man can't love Claire, the broke, struggling designer, he doesn't get to touch Clara Sterling. Well, Claire has one more match queued up for this week," Bridget said, swiping on the screen. "His name is Liam Hayes, 34. Works as a regional manager for a mid-sized commercial HVAC company. His profile says he's a widower with a 7-year-old daughter. Income bracket is solidly lower middle class. Are you sure you want to go through with this one? He doesn't exactly run in your circles." Clara looked at the profile picture Bridget held up. Liam wasn't wearing a tailored suit or standing on a rented yacht in Miami. He was wearing a faded flannel shirt, sitting on a porch with a golden retriever, holding a little girl with missing front teeth. His smile didn't look practiced. It looked genuine, crinkling at the corners of tired but kind green eyes. "Set it up," Clara said softly. "Let's see how fast the single dad runs." Thursday night was bitterly cold, the kind of biting Chicago wind that cuts straight through clothing. Clara chose her venue carefully. Pete's Corner Diner, an old-school, slightly run-down, cash-only joint in a working-class neighborhood on the south side. It smelled of stale coffee, frying bacon, and bleach. It was miles away from her usual haunts. She arrived early, wearing her scuffed Converse sneakers, a pair of faded Levi's, and an oversized, bulky parka. She ordered a black coffee and wrapped her hands around the chipped ceramic mug, watching the door. At exactly 7 p.m., Liam Hayes walked in. He looked exactly like his photos, though perhaps a bit more tired. He was tall, with broad shoulders hidden beneath a heavy Carhartt work jacket. His hands were rough and calloused, the hands of a man who worked for a living, not someone who pushed paper in a high-rise. He scanned the room, spotted her, and his face broke into a warm, immediate smile that made Clara's heart do an unexpected, traitorous little flutter. "Claire?" he asked, walking over and sliding into the booth opposite her. "I'm Liam. It's so great to finally meet you." "Hi, Liam," she said, keeping her voice soft and hesitant. "Thanks for coming all the way down here." "Are you kidding? I love Pete's. Best cherry pie in the city," he said, taking off his jacket. As he did, a folded piece of construction paper fell out of his pocket and fluttered onto the table. It was a crayon drawing of a lopsided house with a giant, scribbled sun. Liam flushed slightly, quickly picking it up. "Sorry. My daughter Mia. She insisted I bring her lucky drawing so I wouldn't mess up my date tonight." Clara felt a genuine smile tug at her lips. "That's incredibly sweet. How old is she?" 7 going on 30, Liam laughed, signaling the waitress. "She's my whole world. It's just been the two of us since my wife passed away 4 years ago." "I'm so sorry," Clara said, and she meant it. The billionaire CEO was used to dates boasting about their golf handicaps. Sitting across from a man openly discussing his grief and love for his child was completely disarming. They ordered cheap burgers and fries, and for the first hour, Clara almost forgot she was playing a part. Liam was funny, attentive, and incredibly grounded. He asked her about her graphic design work, and when Clara vaguely described designing logos for local bakeries, he listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about her creative process. But the clock was ticking. The test had to be administered. As they finished their meals, Clara took a deep breath, dropping her gaze to her half-eaten fries. She let the silence stretch until it became heavy. "Claire?" Liam asked, his tone instantly shifting to one of gentle concern. "Hey, what's wrong? You went 1,000,000 miles away just now." "Liam, you're a really great guy," Clara started, using the exact script that had sent 32 men running. "And I've had a wonderful time tonight, but I feel like I'm deceiving you by being here." Liam frowned slightly but didn't pull away. He leaned forward. "Deceiving me how?" "My life is a mess right now," Clara whispered, forcing a tear to well up in her eye. "I lost my biggest freelance client last month. My car transmission just blew, and I have absolutely no savings. In fact, I have about $45,000 in debt from some bad decisions and family emergencies. I'm 2 months behind on my rent. I'm literally drowning, and I don't think it's fair to drag a single dad into my disaster." She braced herself. She waited for the polite cough. She waited for the glance at the watch, the sudden fabricated emergency, the swift exit. Instead, Liam reached across the table. He didn't grab her hand, but he placed his rough, calloused hand gently near hers, a silent anchor. "Claire." "Look at me," he said softly. Clara looked up, expecting to see pity or disgust. She saw only profound empathy. "When Mia's mum got sick, she was in the hospital for 8 months, Liam said, his voice steady but thick with memory. "The insurance company fought us on everything. Even with my job, the out-of-pocket costs destroyed us. When she passed, I was grieving, trying to raise a toddler, and staring at $90,000 in medical debt. I had to sell our house and move into a tiny 2-bedroom apartment. I ate ramen noodles for a year so Mia could have fresh fruit." Clara stared at him, completely stunned. "Debt is a mathematical problem, Claire. It is not a moral failing," Liam continued, his green eyes locking onto hers. "It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you a human being going through a really hard time. You don't have to carry that shame around like a boulder." Clara's throat tightened. A very real, very unscripted tear slipped down her cheek. No one, not her ruthless father, not her wealthy ex, not even her well-paid therapists, had ever spoken to her with such raw, unfiltered grace. The waitress dropped the check on the table. It was $32. Clara immediately reached into her purse, pulling out her fake, peeling wallet. "Let me split it. I have a card that might still have a little room on it." "Don't be ridiculous," Liam said, firmly but warmly. He pulled out a worn leather wallet. Clara, trained to notice details, saw that it was thin. He pulled out a 20 and a 10, then paused, rummaging for a $5 bill to leave as a tip. She could see he was doing mental math, likely calculating what this dinner meant for his budget until his next paycheck. Yet, he didn't hesitate. "Dinner is on me," he said. "And listen, my buddy runs a printing shop downtown. They're always looking for freelance layout designers. It's not glamorous, mostly menus and flyers, but he pays cash, and he pays fair. I can text him right now and put in a good word for you. It might help bridge the gap with your rent." Clara sat frozen in the vinyl booth. Here was a man who barely had enough to get by, a man raising a child alone, and his immediate instinct upon hearing a stranger's tragic and completely fabricated financial ruin was not to run, but to protect, to offer a lifeline. "Why are you doing this?" Clara asked, her voice cracking. "You barely know me." Liam smiled, sliding out of the booth and offering her his hand. "Because a long time ago, when I thought I was going to lose everything, a stranger bought my groceries when my card declined. He told me to just pass it on when I could. Come on, let me walk you to the bus stop." Clara let him take her hand. His grip was warm and solid. As they walked out into the freezing Chicago night, Clara's mind was racing. She had found exactly what she was looking for, a man with a heart of pure gold, entirely uncorrupted by greed. But a terrifying realization settled in her stomach like a lead weight. Liam Hayes had just proven himself to be a man of absolute integrity. How was she ever going to explain to this struggling, honest single dad that she had lied to his face? That the woman he was trying to save was actually one of the wealthiest women in the world, playing a cruel, psychological game. The trap she had built for gold diggers had just snapped shut on her own leg. For the next 2 months, Clara Sterling lived a grueling, highly orchestrated double life. By day, she was the ruthless titan of Sterling Web logistics. She sat at the head of a massive mahogany table in a glass-walled boardroom on the 50th floor, aggressively negotiating international shipping contracts, dismantling failing subsidiaries, and sparring with her chief financial officer, Harrison Croft, over quarterly projections. She wore bespoke Tom Ford suits and commanded a room with a single, icy glare. But on Tuesday and Thursday evenings and Sunday afternoons, she was Claire, the desperately broke graphic designer. To maintain the illusion, Clara actually rented a dingy one-bedroom apartment in a rundown building in Logan Square. She furnished it with mismatched thrift store furniture and deliberately left a stack of past-due utility bills, expertly forged by her assistant, Bridget, on the kitchen counter. And Liam? Liam was a revelation. He was consistently, unwaveringly kind. He actually got her the freelance gig with his friend Dave at Apex Printing. Clara, a woman who usually oversaw a global marketing budget of $400 million, found herself sitting in her fake apartment at 2 a.m., painstakingly designing trifold menus for a local gyro shop just to earn a $200 cash envelope. She did it because it gave her an excuse to call Liam and celebrate. Their relationship blossomed in the quiet, inexpensive corners of Chicago. They walked through the free botanical gardens at Garfield Park Conservatory. They ate hot dogs by the lake. And, most importantly, Clara met Mia. Mia was a whirlwind of missing teeth, untied shoelaces, and boundless affection. On a crisp Saturday in November, they all went to a public playground near Lincoln Square. Clara pushed Mia on the swings while Liam watched from a nearby bench, holding 2 thermoses of cheap deli coffee. "Higher, Claire, higher!" Mia shrieked, her laughter ringing through the cold air. Clara pushed her, feeling a tight, painful ache expanding in her chest. She looked over at Liam. He was watching them with a look of such profound, unguarded love that it made Clara feel physically ill with guilt. This man was giving her his entire heart. He was letting her into his daughter's life, and it was all built on a colossal, pathological lie. "You're good with her," Liam said softly when Mia ran off to the monkey bars. He wrapped an arm around Clara's shoulders, pulling her close to share his body heat. "She doesn't warm up to people easily since her mum died, but she asked me this morning if you could come over for Thanksgiving." Clara's breath hitched. "Liam, I don't know if I deserve to be a part of her life. Hey, he said, turning her to face him, his rough thumb brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. Don't do that. I know you're stressed about money and the eviction notices, but we're going to figure it out. I picked up some weekend overtime shifts at the warehouse. It's not much, but I can help you cover December's rent. You aren't alone anymore, Claire. Clara had to excuse herself to the public restroom, where she locked herself in a stall and wept until her chest heaved. He was working weekend overtime, breaking his back in a freezing HVAC warehouse to pay rent on a fake apartment that a billionaire had rented as a prop. She was a monster. She had to tell him. She resolved to confess everything that very night. But the universe and corporate capitalism had other plans. On Monday morning, Clara was back in her penthouse, preparing for a brutal week. Sterling Web Logistics was finalizing a massive acquisition. They were buying out a sprawling network of mid-sized industrial suppliers to monopolize the Midwest distribution channels. The acquisition of the Windsor Group is finalized, Clara, Harrison Croft said, handing her a leather-bound portfolio as she stepped off her private elevator. We're absorbing their assets and liquidating their regional management offices. It'll save us roughly $40 million in redundant operational costs. Clara took the file, barely glancing at it. Fine. Execute the layoffs with standard severance packages. Make sure our PR team gets ahead of the local news cycle. Done, Harrison said. That evening, Clara took the L train to Liam's modest two-bedroom apartment, her stomach in knots, ready to confess her true identity. When she knocked on the door, Liam answered, but the warm, crinkling smile was gone. He looked 10 years older. His face was pale, his shoulders slumped, and his eyes were red-rimmed. "Liam, what's wrong? Is Mia okay?" Clara asked, panic spiking in her veins. He stepped back, letting her into the cramped living room. Mia was already asleep in the other room. On the small dining table sat a stack of paperwork. "Mia's fine," Liam said, his voice completely hollow. He ran a trembling hand through his hair. "It's my job, Claire. I just got a call from my regional director. The company, Windsor Climate Solutions. We just got bought out by some massive tech logistics conglomerate out of the blue." Clara's blood turned to ice. The room seemed to tilt violently. Windsor Climate Solutions. That was the name of the regional HVAC company Liam worked for. They're liquidating my entire division," Liam continued, his voice cracking, staring blindly at the wall. "I'm fired, Claire. Me and 300 other guys. Just a mass email and a month's severance. I lose my health insurance at the end of the month. Mia's asthma medication is $400 a month out of pocket. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't even help you with your rent now." He sank onto the worn fabric sofa and buried his face in his hands, completely broken. Clara stood frozen in the center of the room, a deafening ringing in her ears. She hadn't just lied to the man she loved. With a single signature in a multi-million-dollar boardroom that morning, she had systematically destroyed his life. Clara didn't sleep that night. She left Liam's apartment at midnight with a desperate promise that things would work out, then immediately called Bridget from the back of her Maybach. "Call Harrison. Wake the legal team," Clara barked, her voice shaking with raw panic. "I want the Windsor acquisition restructured immediately. Nobody loses their jobs. Nobody." "Clara, the board already approved the liquidations," Bridget warned. "If you reverse this now, the shareholders will demand your head." "I don't care! Fix it!" Clara screamed, the facade of the stoic CEO entirely shattered. By Wednesday, Clara had forced the mandate through, saving the jobs at Windsor, but causing a firestorm in the financial sector. She waited desperately for Liam to call her with the good news. The call never came. Instead, on Thursday afternoon, Liam sat in the waiting room of a downtown temp agency, clutching a printed resume. The wall-mounted television was tuned to CNBC. Andrew Ross Sorkin was looking intently at the camera. "We have breaking news regarding the bizarre reversal at Sterling Web Logistics. Billionaire CEO Clara Sterling has just shocked her board by halting the liquidation of the newly acquired Windsor Group. We have exclusive footage of Sterling leaving her Chicago headquarters." Liam blinked, his tired brain trying to process his company's name. Then the screen cut to live footage of a woman stepping out of a towering glass skyscraper, surrounded by security and flashing cameras. She wore a razor-sharp charcoal suit and $1,000 heels. Liam's heart stopped. He dropped his resume on the linoleum floor. It was Claire, the woman who had cried about pawning her grandmother's ring, the woman he had bought a $32 dinner for while doing mental math to ensure he could still buy his daughter's asthma medication. A wave of burning humiliation washed over him. He wasn't a partner. He was a social experiment. A peasant brought in to entertain a paranoid billionaire playing dress-up in poverty. 2 hours later, Clara's encrypted phone buzzed. Building security was emailing her. A man named Liam Hayes was in the lobby and refused to leave. Clara bypassed the elevator and practically ran down the emergency stairwell. She burst into the marble-floored lobby to find Liam standing near the security desk. He looked entirely out of place in his faded flannel, but his posture was rigid, his jaw set in stone. "Liam," Clara breathed. She felt entirely stripped bare. He didn't yell. That made it infinitely worse. He just looked at her, his green eyes, utterly devoid of warmth. "I saw the news. $3.4 billion. "Liam, please let me explain," Clara pleaded, tears ruining her immaculate makeup. "Explain what?" Liam asked, a bitter laugh escaping his throat. "Explain how you sat in my cramped living room, watched me cry over losing a job you took from me, and pretended to be scared with me. Was it fun? Slumming it with the desperate single dad?" "No. I've been used for my money so many times," Clara cried. "Men have lied and stolen from me. I was terrified. I just wanted to know someone could love me, without the money." "But I didn't know you," Liam said, his voice cracking. "You created a character to manipulate my empathy. You watched me sacrifice the little I had for you, and you let me do it. That's not love. That's cruelty. Keep your billions, Clara, but stay the hell away from me and my daughter." He walked out through the revolving glass doors, disappearing into the crowded Chicago streets. Clara collapsed onto a velvet bench, weeping with a guttural sound. Her fortress had crushed the only pure thing that had ever breached it. For 3 weeks, Clara lived in purgatory. She knew she couldn't buy his forgiveness. If she wanted him back, she had to meet him on his terms. On a freezing Tuesday evening, Liam walked out of Pete's Corner Diner with 2 takeaway coffees and stopped dead. Standing beneath the flickering neon sign was Clara. She wore a simple, unbranded winter coat. No security detail, no Maybach, just her. "I told you not to come looking for me," Liam said defensively. "I'm not here to offer you money," Clara said, her voice steady though her hands trembled. She pulled a thick, bound document from her coat and held it out. "What is this?" he asked, frowning. "It's an irrevocable blind trust," Clara said, looking him dead in the eye. "I have transferred my controlling shares and 90% of my personal liquid assets into a charitable foundation dedicated to wiping out medical debt for working-class families in Illinois. I don't control it anymore. The empire is gone. I stepped down." Liam stared at her, genuinely stunned. Clara, you didn't have to give up your life's work for me. I did it because my wealth made me paranoid and manipulative, Clara said, stepping closer. I tested you because I was broken, but you showed me that a man with $20 to his name is richer than a CEO with $3 billion. I want a life with you, Liam, and I want to build it on the truth. Liam looked from the document to Clara's face. The icy billionaire was gone. In her place was a vulnerable woman risking everything on a freezing street corner. Slowly, his rough hands reached out and gently framed her face. "You're an idiot, Clara Sterling," he whispered, a small, genuine smile finally breaking through. "But I think Mia and I have enough room in our lives for an unemployed consultant." He leaned in and kissed her, the cold Chicago wind completely powerless against the warmth they had finally, honestly, found in each other. Love isn't a test to be administered or a balance sheet to be audited. Clara learned that true wealth isn't found in a billionaire's bank account, but in the quiet, unflinching loyalty of a man willing to share his last $5. They built a life not on deception, but on radical honesty, proving that the most valuable currency in the world is a heart that stays when things get hard.